I don't wish to appear rude, but I am not seeking Jamaharon.
Stellaris Developer Diary 329 has dropped, and Resort Worlds are changing. We're getting changes to the designation, a brand new district, and a brand new job. It's actually pretty exciting. On top of that, we're going to find out a little bit more about the tech rework that might be coming in patch 3.11. So without any further ado, let's dive straight in. Before we look at Resort Worlds and the changes coming there, we're first going to look at the results from the Technology Open Beta. So, much like the very first Technology Open Beta, very experienced players form the bulk of the respondents for the second. This time it was closer to 72% of responses coming from players with over 1,000 hours in the game. Only 1.5% said they had less than 300 hours in Stellaris, so the survey was skewed very much towards the most passionate and most experienced players. The developers would like to thank everybody for their feedback and help with the beta. Now, I do want to say a slight word of warning here. This is personal, this is not the developers saying this. It can definitely be a bad thing when very experienced, very seasoned players, especially those with a PvP focused, are listened to the most in a game like Stellaris, where it is about numbers, but it's also about the roleplay and the magic of the game and the theme. It's not just about the numbers. So if we focus too heavily on improving PvP experience, for example, and balance in the game, sometimes what can happen is we end up leaving the game quite good for PvP, but overall quite sterile for most of the player base. And the majority of the player base for Stellaris, we cannot forget, plays single player and also plays egalitarian xenophile. Like, that's the most common choices for ethics. No matter what you might hear about everyone loving xenophobe and militarist, xenophile egalitarian, from the numbers that I've been told about, so this is out of date, it's about a year or so out of date now, but from the numbers I've been told about, because Paradox does know what you pick, naughty out there, those fanatic purifiers amongst you, but Paradox knows, and egalitarian and xenophile are the most common choices for ethics. So, you know, generally speaking, it does restore my faith in the human race hearing that a little bit. Anyway, we'll move on. This time, a majority of players rated technology progress as just right, with the remainder almost perfectly evenly split between it being too fast or too slow. A majority consensus that the changes were beneficial overall. Just to recap, because this is the second technology beta, not the first, what are the changes we are discussing here? So, breakthrough technologies were thrown out. The base technology costs were reverted to their 3.10.4 values. That's the current values we have in-game. So that massive increase in tech costs that we looked at last month in December, that was not included. But there is an increased cost between tiers handled now by the difficulty adjusted technology cost slider. So if you want the higher techs to cost more, you can increase that. The majority of research upkeep modifiers were removed in this open beta, and, thank goodness, the knights were reverted back to their pre-beta levels, because the knights did not need a nerf to their research, so thank goodness the devs have turned about face on that decision and given the knights all of their research back. Many players missed the breakthrough technologies, and I have to say I am one of them. I absolutely love this new idea. I'm not sure it was implemented perfectly in terms of from a gameplay perspective. I'm going to get into some of the technical implementations of it a little later, because I've seen some comments from the devs on the Discord, and yeah, now we know why they've gotten rid of breakthrough technologies. But I think that it was great having tech spread. It made espionage kind of more important. It made enigmatic engineering more important. And I hope this is a kind of feature that comes back later on. The general opinion tended to lean towards the devs pulling back a little bit too far. Many players commented that they liked how technologies tiers 3 and higher felt more impactful. That is, without the breakthrough technologies slowing down your progress getting there. But many players lamented that with the removal of breakthroughs, Tier 2 technologies sort of melded into Tier 1 technologies. There was also quite a spirited discussion on the Stellaris forums regarding the pros and cons of Galaxy Generation sliders and their effects on newer players. The developers have a general philosophy that it is better to permit more customization of your play experience than less. And honestly, I think I have to agree with that. I can't think anyone could disagree with that. But that the default settings should be a positive play experience for inexperienced players. I also have to say I agree with that. New players tend not to adjust the sliders very much, whilst veterans, who have a better understanding of the exact effects of the various settings, can customize their game to satisfy their needs. And this is something I feel. I've played a lot of Stellaris. I've got 5,000 or 6,000 hours now. And I know exactly how the game is going to feel by changing one setting in a very small way. And I have very specific settings I like to use when I play for fun. I'm sure if you've played quite a bit, you have a similar feeling, and you know exactly how it's going to feel if you go from, let's say, 1 times habitable planets down to 0.5, or you change the text slider around, or you change the logistic growth speed, what effects that's going to have in the mid and the late game. But back to the settings. So the default settings, except for difficulty, should be sufficient for an enjoyable game. The developers agree that the Galaxy settings screen has shown a significant amount of progress and growth over the years, but could benefit from some reworking. That will be placed as a task on the custodian to-do list for some time in the future. If you're enjoying this video, you'd like to support this channel, and you'd like to get your hands on some fantastic discounts, Stellaris and a host of its DLC are on sale right now. You can get up to 70% off by following the link to Humble Bundle down in the description below from the base game, and up to 50% off on selected DLC. Even Galactic Paragons, released just last year, is already on sale. More information about that in the description below. So what are the next steps for the developers? Overall, the developers consider the technology open beta a significant success. They've gathered a lot of useful information and feedback, and it gave them a chance to experiment with some systems that may or may not have panned out. They are going forward with including the changes from the second technology open beta in the 3.11 Eridanus update. Breakthrough technologies will not be coming at this time, but they may experiment with technology spread and similar effects in the future. I mentioned earlier that there were some issues with the implementation of breakthrough technologies. So the implementation of breakthrough technology was, as far as I can understand it, without knowing too much of the specifics of exactly how it was implemented, not great. The game was checking for whether or not every empire had every breakthrough technology for every other empire, which means it's kind of an n factorial computational problem. Yes, if you're into computing, that does sound as terrifying as I'm saying, but yeah, that was bad, and it meant that, as you can see here from Alpha Strike, one of the game designers, it increased the time for a tick in late game saves by 75%. That is an unacceptable large increase to lag. Lag, which of course, as you probably know, is one of the great scourges of late game Stellaris, must be minimized and fought wherever possible. We can give not a single quarter to the lag or anyone that supports it. And for that reason, it basically seems breakthrough technologies could not be included in the game. I'm hopeful there can be an implementation. Perhaps they cache some information, perhaps they revitalize and come back at it with a new paradigm, a new idea on how to do it in a way that's not n factorial in terms of O notation, and then maybe we can get it, or some sort of text spread modifier or effect. I would absolutely love that in the game. Of course, that could necessitate a bit of a rework for espionage and some of the espionage missions as well. One new change that the developers will be making based on some of the data that they have collected is that they are moving the Ascension Theory technology to Tier 4 from Tier 5. It will only be available to empires that have completed at least 6 tradition trees though. As Unity and Research are intended to be opposing resources to a degree, they did not want the capstone of Ascension-based gameplay to be so strongly tied to the later game tech tree. I think that makes sense. I think that is a good decision. I think it's possible as well, actually, they could move it to Tier 3 technology while still requiring at least 6 tradition trees, or possibly even a full 7 tradition trees, and then you have to spend some Unity on it or something like that, maybe? Just a thought. Now, Let's hear about the other changes coming in the update. Of course, I'm talking about the changes coming to Resort Worlds. And if you're enjoying this video, please take a holiday with that like button. To introduce us to the changes to Resort Worlds, we have a new Stellaris developer, Gatekeeper, a long-time modder who has ascended to being part of the Stellaris content team. And if you know anything about what Gatekeeper has done in the past, you will know they really like planets. One thing they've done recently is to imagine a galaxy where resort worlds are not just post-apocalyptic fortress worlds, instead they are vibrant, dedicated havens of rest, starkly contrasting the often harsh realities of interstellar life. So yes, ladies and gentlemen, Tomb World resort worlds are pretty much going the way of the dodo. They're going extinct, which I think is kind of ironic actually. The resort world technology, which permits the creation of resort worlds, the planetary decision, is no longer rare. That means it's going to be much easier for you to get your hands on it. They've also lowered the tier to tier 2, so it will be cheaper and come up earlier. They've updated the decision's restrictions. It no longer has a minimum planet size, but can be used on planets that have upgraded capital buildings. As funny as it was, and everyone did this all the time because you got 100% habitability, you can no longer declare a tomb or relic world a vacation paradise. As you can see here, the decision costs 1000 Unity, disables the construction of most buildings, and removes districts other than the Resort District. Yes, we're getting a brand new district in Stellaris, ladies and gentlemen. Resort workers increase amenities and trade value from living standards. The Create Resort World decision also has a planetary effect, which is Resort World, immigration pull plus 25%, max districts minus 25%. So the planet will have fewer districts overall, but higher immigration pull. I think this means generally we want to make our smallest worlds resort worlds, probably. But then again, that is going to be something we want to balance with having lots and lots of resort districts on our resort worlds. Let's find out now what those are. So instead of providing perfect habitability clerks and entertainers, Resort Worlds provide resort districts that I mentioned, which give housing, building slots, and resort worker jobs that provide trade. They also increase amenities and trade value from living standards across every planet within your empire. This replaces the empire-wide amenities reduction of the old version. Now, I'm not sure that's entirely correct. In the dev diary, it says that there is an empire-wide amenities reduction with Resort Worlds currently. I'm pretty sure they increase amenities on all other colonies by a flat 15%. Somebody let me know down in the comments if I'm completely going mad here or if I'm correct. I'm pretty sure it's an increase to amenities empire-wide rather than a reduction, but I could be wrong. So each of these resort workers is going to grant 4 trade value. So it's basically a clerk with the upgrade from the mercantile tradition, plus 1% amenities empire-wide, and plus 1% trade value from living standards. They also produce a small amount of Unity, and of course they have an upkeep of 2 consumer goods apiece. What do I think about this new worker? Well, the trade value from living standards is basically useless. It's not really worth very much at all. So that one's not great. Plus 1% amenities per pop. I think that's all right, but I think that number is possibly a little bit too low. Early on in a smaller empire, let's say you've got 200 pops empire-wide, dedicating 10% of your population or 10 pops to a resort world to get 10% extra amenities is obviously not worth it. You're going to go down on pop efficiency rather than up. However, if you're running clerks and you want to stop running clerks, you could instead move all of your clerks over to the resort world to be resort workers, and thus boost amenities empire-wide instead of boosting trade value on each planet that the clerk is on by 1%. So early, it's really not that great. Later on, plus 1% amenities when you have, let's say 50 pops in an empire of, let's say 2,000. We're talking quite a bit later on into the game, and you've had quite a lot of growth, maybe a bit of conquest, some integration, yada yada. Spending only 2.5% of your population to get a 50% boost to amenities empire-wide is almost certainly worth it. There's going to be some maths. We could probably make some nice graphs here on when it would and would not be worth it. My feeling generally is that this is not amazing, though could be useful much later into the game. I think if this was amenities usage reduction of -1% empire-wide, we would be having a very different conversation. Using 5% of your population to reduce amenities by 10% amenities usage, that's in the scenario where we have 10 pops in an empire of 200, that is possibly worth it. You are still getting trade value, you are getting additional trade value from living standards and a small amount of unity. So if we change it from amenities to amenities usage reduction, like they are suggesting that the resort worlds used to be, which again, not entirely sure that's the case, but if we changed it to that, I think this suddenly becomes very useful, and we're basically going to want a resort world in pretty much every empire we have, definitely by the late game and possibly by the mid game as well. And that wraps up all the changes we're going to be seeing with Resort Worlds. Next week, we're going to look at some of the fixes and changes coming in the 3.11 Eridanus update. Until then, you can catch me live on Tuesdays, Thursdays, and Saturdays on YouTube and on Twitch. I will put a link down in the description to my streaming schedule. It's basically 8 PM European time, Tuesdays and Thursdays, and a bit earlier on the Saturdays. If you've enjoyed this video and you'd like to find out more about the tech beta and the tech rework, click the video on screen now.